David Park woke up at the same time he had woken up for 18 years. The alarm was not loud. It did not need to be. His body knew the rhythm of Unity Station 7 better than it knew the rhythm of Earth, a planet he had not seen since he was 24 years old. He dressed in his gray uniform, the same uniform every human worker wore across the galaxy. No rank symbols. No decorations. Just a small patch on the shoulder that said, Technical Services, in a language most aliens never bothered to read. He kissed his wife Emily on the forehead. She was already awake, preparing for her own shift in the agricultural domes. Their daughter, Grace, had left an hour earlier for the medical bay. This was life for 14 billion humans, scattered across 10,000 stations, ships, and colonies. They woke up. They worked. They kept things running. And the galaxy barely noticed they existed. David walked through the long corridors of the station. The walls hummed with energy he had learned to read like music. A slight vibration here meant the cooling system needed attention. A faint whistle there meant pressure was building in the secondary pipes. He fixed problems before they became problems. That was his job. That was every human's job. He passed a group of builders on his way to the main engineering deck. The builders were tall creatures made of living crystal. They glowed with soft blue light and spoke in voices that sounded like wind chimes. They were beautiful. They were ancient. They had built the first jump gates 1,000,000 years ago. And they walked past David without looking at him. The same way a person might walk past a cleaning robot. David did not feel anger. He had stopped feeling anger about this a long time ago. It was simply the way things were. 300 years ago, humanity had reached for the stars and found them already crowded. The Galactic Assembly controlled everything. They had rules. They had hierarchies. And they had decided, after studying the small pink creatures from the little blue planet, that humans were not suitable for important work. Humans were too fragile, they said. Human bodies broke easily. Human lives were too short. Humans only lived for 80 or 90 years, which was nothing compared to species that lived for thousands. How could such brief creatures understand long-term planning? How could they be trusted with real responsibility? So humanity was given the small jobs. The maintenance work, the logistics, the repairs that nobody else wanted to do. And humans, desperate to find their place among the stars, accepted. At first, it was supposed to be temporary. Humans would prove themselves. They would earn respect. They would rise. But 300 years passed, and nothing changed. Humans became very good at their small jobs, so good that the galaxy could not function without them. But nobody noticed this, because nobody looked at the people doing the small jobs. David reached the main engineering deck and began his work. The power grid for Unity Station 7 was enormous. It provided energy for 12 different alien species, each with different needs. The builders needed low temperatures. The speakers, who were beings made of gas, needed special pressure environments. The Ironborn, who were warriors covered in metal armor, needed high gravity in their sections. Making all of this work together was like conducting an orchestra, where every instrument played a different song. The original designers had given up on efficiency long ago. They had just added patches and workarounds, and hoped for the best. But David had spent 18 years slowly rebuilding everything. He had created systems within systems. Connections that made no sense on paper but worked perfectly in practice. The station ran better than it ever had. And nobody knew it was because of him. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from his old friend, Tom Wheeler, who worked in the diplomatic section. Tom had somehow managed to become a representative for humanity in the assembly, though the position had no real power. The message was short. Vote is today. Watch, if you can. David found a screen and watched. Tom stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Assembly. He looked small. The chamber was designed for species much larger than humans. The seats rose up like mountains around him. Thousands of aliens looked down at the tiny figure in the gray uniform. For 300 years, Tom said, his voice steady, humanity has served this assembly. We have maintained your stations. We have grown your food. We have healed your sick. We have carried your messages and translated your words and solved your problems. We have done this without complaint. We have done this with excellence, and we have done this without asking for anything in return. The chamber was silent. David felt something in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or fear. Today, Tom continued, I am asking for something. I am asking that humanity be granted voting rights in this assembly. I am asking that we be recognized as full members of galactic civilization. I am asking that 300 years of service be acknowledged. The silence stretched. Then, from somewhere in the upper seats, there was a sound. It was laughter. One alien laughing. Then another. Then more. The speaker who served as assembly president raised a tendril. The motion is denied. It said, humanity does not meet the requirements for voting membership. This matter is closed. Tom stood there for a moment. His face showed nothing. Then he nodded once and walked out of the chamber. David turned off the screen. He stood in the engineering deck surrounded by machines he had spent 18 years perfecting. Machines that kept aliens alive who would never learn his name. He thought about his wife, who had turned dead soil into gardens that fed millions. He thought about his daughter, whose steady hands had saved lives that would never thank her. He did not feel anger. He had stopped feeling anger a long time ago, but he felt something else now. Something quiet and cold and final. It was the feeling of a door closing. The feeling of a decision being made not in his mind but somewhere deeper. That night, David went home. Emily had already seen the vote. Grace came home late, tired from a long surgery. They ate dinner together in silence. There was nothing to say. They all knew what they had seen. They all knew what it meant. After dinner, David's communicator buzzed again. It was not a message. It was a file. A simple document, shared from human to human across the galaxy. 14 billion people received it at the same moment. The document was a resignation letter. David read it. Emily read it. Grace read it. They looked at each other. And for the first time in years, David smiled. Well, he said, I suppose it is time to go home. Lisa Miller had worked in logistics for 23 years. She managed the movement of food, medicine, and supplies across 47 star systems in the Western Spiral Arm. Every day, she made sure that cargo ships went where they needed to go. Every day, she solved problems that should have been impossible. And every day, her supervisors took credit for her work, while barely remembering her name. She sat in her small office on Transit Hub 9 and looked at the resignation letter on her screen. It was simple. Professional. It gave 30 days' notice. As required by regulation, it thanked her employers for the opportunity to serve. It said nothing about why she was leaving. Her hand moved to the send button. She paused. 23 years. Her whole adult life. Everything she had built. Everything she knew. Could she really walk away from all of it? She thought about her mother, who had worked on a mining station until her lungs gave out from the dust. She thought about her father, who had died in an accident that happened because the builders refused to pay for proper safety equipment. She thought about her brother, who was still working somewhere in the outer colonies, doing jobs that would slowly kill him too. She thought about the vote. The laughter in the chamber. The way Tom Wheeler had stood there, representing all of humanity, and been dismissed like a child, asking for candy. Lisa pressed send. Within 1 hour, every human in her department had done the same. 40,000 resignation letters. They did not coordinate in any official way. There were no meetings, no announcements. They simply looked at each other across their workstations, nodded, and pressed send. The news spread faster than light could travel. On every station, every ship, every colony, humans began submitting their resignations. The documents were all the same. 30 days notice. Professional language. No demands. No anger. Just a quiet statement that their service was ending. The first reaction from the assembly was confusion. This had never happened before. Humans did not quit. Humans did not complain. Humans just worked. That was what humans did. The second reaction was dismissal. Let them go, the elder races said. We managed before humans came. We will manage after they leave. They are not important. On Unity Station 7, David Park submitted his resignation on the morning of the third day. He handed it directly to his supervisor, a builder named something that sounded like crystal bells ringing. David had never learned to pronounce it. In 18 years, the builder had never taught him. This is unexpected, the builder said, looking at the document. Is there a problem with your compensation? No, David said. Is there a problem with your working conditions? No. Then why are you leaving? David thought about the question. He could explain. He could talk about respect and dignity and 300 years of service that meant nothing. But he realized, standing there, that he did not want to explain. He was tired of explaining things to people who did not want to understand. My contract is ending, he said. That is all. The builder stared at him with eyes like blue diamonds. We need you to stay. The station requires maintenance. Yes, David agreed. It does. He turned and walked away. Emily closed the agricultural domes on the 5th day. She had spent 15 years learning how to grow earth crops in alien soil under artificial suns. She had created new methods, new techniques, new ways of making food grow where it should not grow. All of this knowledge was in her head. None of it was written down. Nobody had ever asked her to write it down. Nobody had ever thought her knowledge was worth recording. She gave her alien coworkers a list of instructions. The list was 10 pages long. It covered the basics. How to water the plants. What temperature to keep the domes. When to harvest. But it did not cover the real knowledge. The way she could look at a leaf and know something was wrong. The way she could smell the air and predict a disease before it showed symptoms. The way she talked to the plants. And the plants seemed to listen. That knowledge walked out the door with her. Grace Park was the last of her family to resign. She stayed 3 extra days to finish treating her patients. She taught the alien doctors as much as she could. She wrote detailed notes about every case, but she knew it would not be enough. Human medicine was different from alien medicine. Humans had learned to treat species that had nothing in common. They had developed techniques for creatures with 4 hearts and creatures with no hearts at all. Grace could look at an alien body and see patterns that alien doctors missed. She could not explain how. It was just something humans had learned to do. On her last day, an iron-born commander came to the medical bay. He was large and covered in metal plating that was part of his body. His species were warriors. They did not ask for things. They demanded. You cannot leave, he said. I forbid it. Grace looked up at him. She was small. Her head barely reached his chest. But she did not seem afraid. Forbid, she repeated. That is an interesting word. It means you have power over me. But you do not have power over me. You never did. You only had my service, which I gave freely. And now I am taking it back. This is desertion. There are laws. The laws say I must give 30 days notice. I have given 30 days notice. The laws say I must complete my current duties. I have completed my current duties. The laws say nothing about forcing me to stay. The commander's metal hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Grace thought he might hit her. But he did not. Because even now, even in his anger, he knew the truth. Humans were everywhere. If he hurt one human, the others would hear about it. And then they would leave faster. You will regret this, he said. Grace picked up her bag. She thought about everything she was leaving behind. The patients she had grown to care about. The work she had spent years learning. The life she had built among the stars. Maybe, she said. But I do not think so. She walked out of the medical bay. She walked past the iron-born soldiers. She walked to the transport ship where her parents were waiting. David and Emily stood at the entrance. They looked tired. They looked sad. But they also looked free. Ready? David asked. Grace took one last look at Unity Station 7. The place where she had grown up. The place where she had learned to be a doctor. the place where she had saved hundreds of lives and never been thanked. "Ready," she said. The transport ship left the station. Across the galaxy, millions of other ships were doing the same. Humans were going home. To Earth. To the planet that the Assembly had locked away and called a protected reserve. To the only place in the universe where humans were not servants. Behind them, the galaxy continued to turn. The elder races continued to laugh. Everything was fine, they told themselves. Everything would be fine. They were wrong. The first week after the humans left was quiet. The elder races told themselves that nothing had changed. Humans had done small jobs. Small jobs could be learned by anyone. The great civilization of the Galactic Assembly had existed for millions of years. It would not fall because some short-lived creatures decided to go home. On the 8th day, the lights on Unity Station 7 began to flicker. The builder engineers came quickly. They were the greatest engineers in the galaxy. They had built structures that lasted for ages. They had created the jump gates that connected 100,000 worlds. Surely they could fix a simple power grid. They could not. The system that David Park had built over 18 years was like nothing they had ever seen. It did not follow their plans. It did not match their schematics. Wires went to places that made no sense. Connections linked systems that should not have been linked. The whole thing looked like chaos. But it was not chaos. It was a different kind of order. Human order. David had seen problems that the original designers had missed. He had found solutions that no textbook contained. He had built something that worked perfectly. Something that was more efficient than anything the builders had designed. But it only worked if you understood how David thought, and nobody had ever asked David how he thought. The builders spent 3 days trying to understand the system. On the 4th day, they gave up and tried to rebuild it their way. The station lost power for 6 hours. 47 aliens died. After that, the builders stopped trying to rebuild. They just tried to keep things running. But things kept breaking in ways they could not predict. The same thing happened everywhere. On Transit Hub 9, the cargo ships stopped moving. Lisa Miller had managed those ships with a system of her own creation. She had known which routes were safe and which were dangerous. She had known which ships could carry what cargo. She had known 1,000 small details that were never written in any manual. Without her, the people who took over her job made mistakes. Ships went to the wrong places. Cargo was lost. Food rotted in warehouses while colonies went hungry. In the agricultural domes, Emily's plants began to die. The alien workers followed her instructions exactly. But instructions could not capture everything. They did not know that the 3rd dome needed more water on hot days. They did not know that the soil in Section 7 had a problem that required special treatment. They did not know that the plants responded to music. That Emily had sung to them every morning because it helped them grow. Within 2 weeks, the crops failed. Within a month, 3 stations were on emergency food rations. The medical bays were the worst. Grace had trained other doctors before she left. She had written thousands of pages of notes. But alien medicine was not like human medicine. Most alien doctors knew how to treat their own species. They did not know how to treat others. They did not want to learn. That was what humans were for. Without humans, patients started dying from conditions that should have been easy to treat. A builder died from an infection that Grace would have spotted in seconds. An Ironborn warrior died on the operating table because the doctor did not know that Ironborn had 2 hearts, not 1. A speaker dispersed into nothing because nobody knew how to maintain the pressure in its medical chamber. The assembly held emergency meetings. They argued about what to do. They blamed each other. They blamed the humans. They did not look for solutions, because looking for solutions would mean admitting that they had a problem. And admitting they had a problem would mean admitting that humans had been important. On the 15th day, the jump gate network began to fail. The jump gates were the greatest achievement of galactic civilization. They connected stars that were thousands of light years apart. They made trade possible. They made communication possible. They made the assembly itself possible. Without the gates, the galaxy would fall apart into 1,000 isolated worlds. Humans had maintained the gates for 200 years. It was considered the most boring job in the galaxy. The gates were stable, everyone said. They just needed small adjustments. Anyone could do it. Michael Torres had done it for 31 years. He knew that everyone was wrong. The gates were not stable. They were constantly changing, constantly shifting, constantly trying to tear themselves apart. They needed adjustments every hour, sometimes every minute. The adjustments were tiny, a fraction of a degree here, a small change in power there. But if you missed even one adjustment, the gate would drift. And if a gate drifted too far, it would collapse. Michael had a feeling for the gates. He could sense when something was wrong before the instruments showed it. He could make adjustments that the computers said were unnecessary, but that turned out to be exactly right. He could not explain how he did it. Neither could any of the other human technicians who worked on the gates. It was just something they knew. The aliens who took over did not know. They followed the procedures exactly. They made the adjustments that the computers told them to make, and one by one, the gates began to fail. The first gate to collapse was on the outer edge of assembly space. It connected two small colonies. Nobody important noticed. The second gate was bigger. It connected a major trade route. When it collapsed, 50 ships were trapped between stars. They ran out of fuel and air. Nobody survived. The third gate was a main hub. When it collapsed, it took 4 other gates with it. Suddenly, a whole sector of the galaxy was cut off from the rest. The species in that sector sent desperate messages asking for help. But help could not reach them. The gates were gone. Panic began to spread. The assembly ordered all remaining gates to be shut down for safety checks. But shutting down the gates meant stopping all travel. Stopping all travel meant stopping all trade. Stopping all trade meant that colonies began to run out of food, medicine, and supplies. The galaxy was not dying. Not yet. But it was bleeding. Every day, another system failed. Every day, another problem appeared. Every day, the elder races discovered something else that humans had been doing quietly, invisibly, for 300 years. And every day, they asked the same question. Where did the humans go? Why would they not come back? The answer was simple. The humans had gone home. They had gone to Earth, and they were not coming back because nobody had given them a reason to come back. The elder races had 300 years to say thank you. 300 years to learn human names. 300 years to treat humans like equals. They had not. Now they were learning what that choice had cost them. Earth was beautiful. David had forgotten how beautiful it was. He stood on a hill overlooking a valley in Montana. The grass was green. The sky was blue. A river moved slowly through the land below, catching the sunlight and turning it into diamonds. Birds sang in trees that had been growing for hundreds of years. The air smelled like rain and flowers and life. For 18 years, David had lived inside metal walls. He had breathed recycled air. He had looked at stars through windows and wondered what it would feel like to stand under an open sky. Now he knew. It felt like coming home. Emily stood beside him. Her hands were dirty from working in their new garden. A real garden, with real soil, where she could grow whatever she wanted. Nobody was watching. Nobody was judging. Nobody needed her to produce food for millions of aliens who did not care if she lived or died. Grace was in town, helping at the local clinic. She treated humans now. Only humans. People who spoke her language. People who smiled and said thank you. People who remembered her name. Life was simple. Life was slow. Life was good. The alien ship arrived on a Tuesday morning. David saw it coming from miles away. It was a builder ship. All crystal and light, moving through the atmosphere like a falling star. It landed in a field outside town. The grass burned beneath it. When the doors opened, a delegation of 12 aliens walked out. David did not go to meet them. Neither did anyone else in town. The aliens stood in the burned field for 3 hours before someone finally agreed to talk to them. That someone was Kevin Park, David's father. An old man who had spent his whole life on Earth, because he had been too stubborn to leave. He walked out to the field with his fishing rod over his shoulder, as if he had just happened to be passing by. "You are human," the lead builder said. Its voice chimed like bells in wind. "Last time I checked," Kevin said, "we come as representatives of the Galactic Assembly. We have a message for your people." Kevin waited. He did not look impressed. "We are prepared to offer humanity full voting rights in the Assembly," the builder said. "We are prepared to offer territory. 5-star systems, reserved for human colonies. We are prepared to offer resources. Whatever materials you need, whatever technology you desire." Kevin scratched his chin. "That sounds like a lot." "It is. We recognize that humanity has been treated unfairly. We wish to correct this mistake." Kevin looked at the burned grass. He looked at the crystal ship. He looked at the 12 aliens standing in the field like lost children. "You know what I remember? I remember my son calling me from that station of his. 18 years he worked there. 18 years he kept your people alive. And not once, not one single time, did anyone say thank you." The builder shifted. Its crystals made uncomfortable sounds. "We understand that there were failures of communication." Communication. Kevin laughed. It was not a happy sound. "My granddaughter saved an iron-born general's life once. Did you know that? He was dying. Nobody else knew what to do. Grace worked for 14 hours straight. She did not sleep. She did not eat. She saved his life. And when he woke up, you know what he said? He said, 'Get this human out of my sight. I do not want her looking at me.'" The builder said nothing. "That is not communication," Kevin said. "That is something else. I do not know the right word for it. But I know it when I see it. And I have been seeing it for 300 years. We are offering you everything you asked for. Voting rights, territory, resources. No. You are offering us what we asked for 50 years ago. 100 years ago. 200 years ago. Every time we asked, you laughed. You told us we were not good enough. You told us we were too small, too weak, too short-lived. And we believed you. We believed you. And we worked harder. And we hoped that one day, you would see that we were worthy." Kevin paused. His old eyes were hard. "But here is the thing," he said. "We stopped hoping. We stopped wanting your approval. We stopped caring what you think of us. And now you come here, with your offers and your apologies. And you expect us to be grateful. You expect us to come running back. But we are not grateful. We are not angry either. We are just done. Your refusal will mean the collapse of galactic civilization. Yes, it probably will. Billions will die. Yes, they probably will." The builder stared at Kevin with eyes like blue diamonds. "You do not care?" Kevin sighed. He suddenly looked very tired, very old. "I care. I have always cared. That was the problem. I cared about people who did not care about me. My son cared. My granddaughter cared. Every human in the galaxy cared. We cared so much that we forgot to ask if anyone cared about us. We care now. No, you need us now." "That is different." Kevin turned to walk away. Then he stopped and looked back. "You want to know the truth? My son is happier now than I have ever seen him. He fixes boats. Just boats. Simple machines that take people out on the water to catch fish. Nobody is depending on him to keep a whole station running. Nobody is going to die if he makes a mistake. He sleeps well at night. He smiles. He laughs." I had forgotten what his laugh sounded like. The builder did not respond. "Go home," Kevin said. "Tell your assembly that we are sorry for their troubles. Tell them we hope they find a way to survive. But also tell them this. We are not coming back. Not for voting rights. Not for territory. Not for resources. Not for anything. We gave you 300 years. That was enough. That was more than enough. Now we are going to live our own lives. In our own way. on our own world, and we are going to be happy." He walked away. His fishing rod bounced on his shoulder. The builder delegation stood in the burned field and watched him go. They sent other delegations. To other cities. To other countries. The answer was always the same. Sometimes it was polite. Sometimes it was angry. Sometimes it was just sad. But it was always, no. The speakers came with promises of ancient knowledge. No. The Ironborn came with threats of war. No. And also, we do not have weapons. We do not have ships. But if you attack us, you will lose the last humans in the galaxy. Is that what you want? The smaller races came with tears and begging. No. We are sorry. We truly are. But no. After 6 months, the delegations stopped coming. The aliens finally understood. Humanity was not negotiating. Humanity was not playing games. Humanity had simply decided that the galaxy was not their problem anymore, and the galaxy, slowly, was falling apart. 1 year after the humans left, the Galactic Assembly held its final meeting. The great chamber was half empty. Many species could no longer travel to the central world. The jump gates had failed. The ships had no fuel. The communication networks were breaking down. Delegates appeared as flickering images on screens, their signals barely holding together across the dying infrastructure. The speaker who served as assembly president called for order. Nobody listened. Everyone was shouting. Everyone was blaming someone else. The Ironborn accused the builders of incompetence. The builders accused the speakers of sabotage. The smaller races huddled in corners, afraid and forgotten. "We must find a solution," the president said. "We must work together." "How?" an Ironborn general demanded. "Half our fleet is stranded. Our soldiers are starving on distant worlds. We cannot even reach them. The agricultural systems are collapsing everywhere," a builder representative added. "We have tried to implement the human methods. We cannot. The knowledge died with them. Or rather, it walked away with them. Then bring them back," someone shouted from the crowd. "Force them to return." "With what? Our ships cannot reach Earth. And even if they could, the humans have no weapons. They have no defenses. But they have something worse. They have nothing we can threaten. They do not want anything we have. You cannot force someone who does not care." The president raised a tendril for silence. "There must be something. Some way to convince them. We tried everything," the builder representative said. Its voice was tired, broken. "We offered them power. They said they did not want power. We offered them wealth. They said they had everything they needed. We offered them revenge. They said they were not angry. They just left. They left. And they took everything we never knew we needed." The chamber fell silent. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then the lights flickered. The screens showing distant delegates went dark. The power systems, maintained by nobody who truly understood them, finally failed. The last meeting of the Galactic Assembly ended in darkness. Over the next year, civilization collapsed. It did not happen all at once. It happened slowly, piece by piece. World by world, the jump gate network failed completely. 100,000 worlds that had been connected became 100,000 isolated islands. Travel between stars became impossible. Communication became unreliable. The great web that had held the galaxy together for millions of years simply fell apart. Wars broke out. The speakers and the Ironborn, who had been rivals for ages, finally turned their hatred into violence. Without human mediators to calm them, without human diplomats to find compromise, they fought. They destroyed each other's worlds. They killed billions. And when it was over, both species were broken, reduced to scattered survivors hiding in the ruins of their empire. The builders retreated to their ancient homeworld. They had built the jump gates. They had created the foundations of galactic civilization. And now they watched it all crumble. Some of them went mad. Some of them simply stopped. Their crystal bodies grew dark and still, like lights going out one by one. The smaller races suffered most. They had depended on the assembly for everything. When the assembly fell, they had nothing. No food, no medicine, no protection. Many of them went extinct. Their names were forgotten. Their histories were lost. It was as if they had never existed at all. Earth watched from a distance. The humans had built simple telescopes. They had old radios that could pick up signals from space. They heard the screams. They heard the battles. They heard the silence that came after. David Park stood on his hill in Montana and looked up at the stars. He knew what was happening out there. He knew that beings were dying. Civilizations were falling. That the galaxy his daughter had once helped to heal was bleeding to death. He felt sad. He had spent 18 years among those beings. He had learned their languages, understood their cultures, cared about their problems. He did not hate them. He had never hated them. He had just reached a point where he could not carry them anymore. Grace came to stand beside him. She was 32 now. She had married a man from town. She was expecting her first child. Her hands, which had once saved alien lives, now delivered human babies and treated human colds and held human hands in human hospitals. "Are you thinking about them?" she asked. "Yes. Do you feel guilty?" David considered the question. He had asked it to himself many times. "No," he finally said. "I feel sad, but not guilty. We did not destroy them. We just stopped saving them. There is a difference. Some people say we should have stayed, that we had a responsibility. We had a responsibility for 300 years. We met that responsibility. We exceeded that responsibility, and we were given nothing in return, not respect, not gratitude, not even acknowledgement. At some point, responsibility becomes slavery, and we were not slaves." Grace nodded. She understood. Everyone understood. That was why nobody had gone back. Not because they were angry, not because they wanted revenge, but because they had finally realized that they deserved better, that their lives had value, that they did not exist just to serve others. Years passed. The signals from space grew quieter. The wars ended, one way or another. The survivors adapted or died. The galaxy entered a dark age. The great civilization that had spanned 100,000 worlds became a memory, then a legend, then nothing at all. On Earth, humanity built a new life. Not an empire. Not a civilization of conquest and expansion. Just a good life. A simple life. Families raised children. Farmers grew food. Doctors healed the sick. Teachers taught the young. People lived and loved and died, the way people always had, the way people always would. One day, a ship appeared in Earth's sky. It was not a warship. It was barely a ship at all. It was a broken thing, held together with hope and desperation, carrying a handful of survivors from a species that had once been great. They landed near the coast. They came out with their hands raised, showing they meant no harm. Humans gathered to look at them. Nobody seemed afraid. Nobody seemed angry. The leader of the aliens, a young ironborn with rust on his armor, stepped forward. "We have nowhere else to go," he said. "Our world is gone. Our people are scattered. We heard that Earth was still here, that humans were still alive. We did not know where else to turn." An old woman stepped out of the crowd. Her name was Grace Park. Her hair was white now. Her hands were wrinkled, but her eyes were the same as they had always been. Kind, steady, strong. "You can stay," she said. "We will find a place for you. We will teach you how to live here. But you should know something first." The young ironborn waited. "You are not guests," Grace said. "You are not servants. You are not masters. You are just people. Like us. That means you work. You contribute. You help your neighbors when they need help. And you accept help when you need it. You treat others the way you want to be treated. Simple rules, fair rules, human rules. The Ironborn looked at her. In his eyes, there was something that his species had never shown to humans before. Respect. We understand, he said. Thank you. Grace smiled. It was the same smile her father had smiled. All those years ago. When he had received the resignation letter. The smile of someone who is finally free. Welcome to Earth, she said. Welcome home. The galaxy had collapsed because humanity walked away. But humanity had not walked away to punish anyone. They had walked away to save themselves. And in the end, they had built something better. Not bigger, not more powerful. Just better. A world where people mattered. A world where work was valued. A world where nobody was invisible. That was the human gift. That was what the galaxy had never understood. It was not strength. It was not technology. It was the simple belief that every person, no matter how small, no matter how quiet, no matter how ordinary, had the right to be seen. The stars still burned in the sky. Somewhere out there, the ruins of a great civilization floated in the dark. But on Earth, the lights were warm, the children were laughing, and the people were happy. That was enough. That had always been enough.